Welcome back to episode 38 of What's the Dill. And guess what? Lent is here. Yep, it's that time of year again. Lent is here. Check your calendars, check Ash Wednesday date, check it for next year because it's coming next year too. Lent is a time that is challenging. Every single year it's challenging for me. It's like, who wants to do hard things? Whose default mode is to say, oh yeah, fasting and almsgiving and time of purification and surrender? Yeah, sign me up. Sign me for 365 days a year. I'm not like that. If you're like that, tell me your secrets, DM me, call me, because I'd love to hear how you do it. But I'm not like that. So Lent is always a time of growth for me. And I feel like right around Christmas, right after Christmas, I always do that Google search. I always do that search where I'm like, what day is Ash Wednesday 2023? And the date, no matter what it is, it always surprises me. I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, it's February 22nd this year. And I start doing some math on when Easter is. I'm like, all right, like an April Easter. That's nice. It's warm out. That's nice. But it always kind of takes me a little bit by surprise. When I think of the brand of Lent, it actually is a very strong brand. The same emotions kind of, I think, are evoked in everyone. Prayer, ashes, kind of suffering, uniting our suffering. Just the word Lent, I think it strikes out at everyone. So that is a very strong brand. And for me, I have a lot of memories of Lent growing up and being an adult. And, there's, I have funny memories. I think of a memory of Lent. I always, that moment where, it's a morning and I'm like, hey, let me get a bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll. And, I'm like, oh, this is going to be so good. I'm so starving. And as soon as I get this bacon, egg, and cheese, I'm like, it's a Friday in Lent. I mean, without fail, I get complete amnesia on Fridays in Lent in the morning. It's, for some, I'll have a bowl of cereal 7 Fridays in a row. But every Friday in Lent, at work or at school, it's always like, hey, who's ready for Meat Lovers Friday? We got every type of breakfast meat you want this Friday right now, completely free. And it's like, oh my gosh, without fail, every single Friday in Lent. That's a memory I always have of Lent. And speaking of the brand of Lent, I thought lentils, like lentil soup, was named after the season of Lent. Because we would always have lentil soup in Lent, whether it was a Friday or a Tuesday night. We would have lentil soup a lot. And, growing up, it was just lentils, nothing else, nothing really in it. And it was just lentils. Always kind of like, ugh, I don't know if I want to eat this. This is, I'm having it with a piece of bread, this kind of simple meal. And I thought it was called lentils because of lentil soup. And I kind of found out it wasn't named after the season of Lent at a very embarrassing age. I was in my early 20s when I was like, it's funny. I thought lentils is kind of spelt differently. I thought it was kind of Lent is about, penitential, offerential, lentil things in life. I thought it was Lent, a lentil time, eating, these things and, eating in Lent, during this lentil time is, simple things. So I thought lentil soup was named after the season of Lent. It's not. Lentils are just legumes, just named after, I don't know, themselves. So those are two kind of funny kind of memories of Lent. But, Lent is really this time to draw closer to Christ. Myself, I kind of always ask the question, well, why do we need a season every single year to go through this, this self-denial, or this kind of, I'll say, kind of more, kind of more intentional season of self-denial? Well, I think because, we're broken people and I'm a broken person. And, for me, wherever the line is, it's easy to go up to that line. If I don't have those barriers, if I don't have those intentional times or intentional seasons or, accountability, it's really easy to lose sight of the race. It's really easy to lose sight of everything. And one thing I've grown in as time has gone on is that, hey, Lent is a time of self-denial and a time of strengthening my relationship with God and fasting and almsgiving, giving of myself and practicing charity and, more prayer in my life. And, denying myself food and, denying the things of the world. But, hey, at the end of Lent is a super great party. The celebration that hey, life is hard, but God is so good that he conquers all these hard things. So that's something I've grown in to like, hey, like I can enter into like the Lenten season or the lentil season, whatever you call it. And because God then at the end of this, he conquers all of that and he like makes us whole. So maybe I'm broken down or I've given of myself and, I've, done these things that have challenged me and pushed me, but God is there at the end of the season to like refresh us and renew us in the Easter season. I always remember growing up hearing adults or priests or, people, pastors say, Lent is a great time to draw closer to God. And it's always like, oh man, like, okay, no TV, simple eating, really cold out because it was always cold in the Northeast during Lent. So it was just like freezing cold and, like a lot of kneeling. There was a lot of kneeling during Lent. And obviously I was a kid, so I kind of just looked at the challenging parts of Lent. But as I've gotten older, I've seen that self-discipline really helps me in my life in and out of Lent. So Lent's a great time to really continue in being disciplined because it helps me in my life. Remember that episode I did about self-denial and kind of detachment from the world? Like, hey, like this is a great time to practice that stuff, to practice being detached, to focus in on God and keeping our hearts aligned with God because there's so many distractions. And, when during a crazy week of work in the summer can we be so busy that, like we lose track of ever praying? So like Lent's a great time to like keep my gaze, keep my focus on God. But real quick, before I get into John Paul II and some of his quotes and some of his thoughts on Lent, I want to hear your stories with Lent because like, this is one of these shared consciousness things, like something we all do together across the world this season of Lent. And I'd love to hear any of your guys' experiences with Lent, whether it's, waking up early for Mass or lentil soup or whatever it is. I'd love to hear. So shoot me an email, text, call, Slack me, DM me, whatever, because I want to hear. And if it's a great story, maybe I'll read it out the next episode because I know that'd be fun if we all kind of have these shared experiences. So JP2, I could probably do a million episodes on the stuff that JP2 said on a million different topics, but he has some really, really great quotes about Lent. Here's one of them. The season of Lent is a time of spiritual renewal, a time to take stock of our lives and turn our hearts and our minds back to God. And this hits home for me because, during the grind, day in, day out, work, life, all the stuff, it's so easy for me to lose focus on God and to lose focus on like the important things. I can just think about like work, life, commitments, details, all of these things. And like God wants my heart. And this season is a really, really good time for me to just like reorient to God. This is a good time to really be honest with God about, hey, like maybe I'm not doing so well. And I've had some good Lents, I've had some terrible ones. I've had some Lents where I've done nothing or felt nothing. I've had no renewal. And you know what? The Lents that I've had great renewal has been when I've really kind of entered into Lent and taken stock and really, entered into the season. And speaking of renewal, I love that idea, like renewal. Like these things are supposed to make us whole. They're supposed to kind of transform us, not just be like hard times. All right, you had some hard times, good. Check in, check out. But like, no, like these are supposed to renew this is supposed to renew my soul, make me new. Another great quote from John Paul II. Lent is a time for penance, for prayer, and for reflecting on the sacrifice of Christ on the cross. It is a time to unite ourselves with the sufferings of Christ and to seek his mercy and forgiveness. And I love the idea of mercy and forgiveness being a big part of Lent because when we take stock of our lives, when we do these times of self-denial, when we kind of look at ourselves and where we are at with our relationship with God, it's so easy for me to then say, hey, like I'm not where I need to be. I need forgiveness. I need mercy. I need boatloads of mercy. I need shipyards full of mercy. And so I love that, like, hey, this is not just like hard for being hard's sake. This is a time to be forgiven, to receive mercy. And that for me has always really like hit home that like I need mercy and God's always there to give it to me. There's this great quote that says, our sin is a drop in the ocean of God's mercy. And it's like, that is powerful because like I can focus on the things I've done wrong in my life, the shame associated with sin or, sin I've had in my life. And it's so easy for me to get like wrapped up in the things I've done wrong and say, oh, how could God have forgiven me? But Lent is a time to say, hey, like you're forgiven. And not only are you forgiven, Pete, but like at the end of this road, Christ is risen. Christ conquered sin. And it's like, wow, I can get down with that. Final quote from JP2 about Lent. Lent is a time to purify our hearts and minds, to detach ourselves from the things of this world, and to focus on the things that matter most, our relationship with God and our love for others. That is so powerful because think about all of the details of life and everything that life can bring on an everyday basis. Think of your life every day. Let's take 1 second to think about what we do on an everyday. Wake up, get ready for school, get ready for work, take care of kids, drop kids off at work, get to work, have meetings, do our projects, have another meeting, have lunch, work more, focus in on deep work time, come back, pick up school kids from work, do activities, go to a share group, maybe go to mass, have time with your spouse, have time with your friends, try to relax for a minute, do that over again. And that's just one day. All these things on a day that's not even that incredibly busy, a day not filled with any travel or family or huge commitments. And so in life, like what's really, really important? It's like our relationship with God and our relationship with others. And that speaks to me so much this year. My word of the year is relationships this year. I think focusing on relationship with God and relationship with others, like that's what's most important. That's from JP2. Hey, like Lent is a time to remember that it's not about us, but it's about God and it's about the people around us and our love for the people around us. So like these challenging things are supposed to make me like love people better. It's supposed to make me love God better. It's not just like, hey, like remember doing 1,000 push-ups in a row is good for you because it's hard. It's like, okay, that's cool, but it's like, hey, these self-denial moments, these times of extra prayer and almsgiving and fasting, it's supposed to make us love people better and love Christ better. So these are really powerful insights into Lent for the season. And, hey, it's not an easy season. So let's be accountable to each other. Hold me accountable. Ask me how I'm doing in Lent. Reach out to me. I would love that. And I hope to have a great Lent. I'm going to try my best to, be praying more, fasting more, giving alms more, on top of the other things I'm doing for Lent. And I want to make this be a good Lent. And let's remember, I want to remember that it's not just a time of hardship, but a time of renewal and a time that, draws us greater into relationship with God and greater love for others. Hope you all have a good Lent. Reach out to me. Make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, to the podcast. Follow us on all social platforms. Hope to see you soon.